which is hockey show. I'm the Trev. It's too sweet. Anyway, continuing with retired numbers. Today we're going to finish up the Florida Panthers, at least to this point. And we're going to talk about the first player to have his number retired. Yes, they have 2 retired numbers already, which we've covered, which you can check out here. One of the first ones I did, as well as right here. And while both of them are definitely deserving of their own retirement in their own right, this one's more player-based. So having said that, and I will attempt to do this one justice. Let's talk about the number 1, belonging to Roberto Luongo. Let's talk about it. So Luongo's career in Florida began on June 24th, 2000, which is otherwise known as Draft Day 2000. The New York Islanders decided to draft Rick DiPietro with the first overall pick. And if you want, let me know. We could always discuss Rick DiPietro in a different video. But Luongo, who was 2 games short of completing his rookie campaign with the New York Islanders, was traded with future Panthers captain Olli Jokinen to the Panthers for Mark Parrish and Oleg Kvasha. Now, coming into Florida, it came with a lot of hype as management decided to start using terms like franchise guy and the guy teams have to win Stanley Cups around. Notice the plural there? Cups. Anyway, Luongo entered the season not as the starter, but at least competing for the starting job with Trevor Kidd, and they played the season evenly. Luongo's first game with Florida was on October 9th, 2000, in a losing effort to the Boston Bruins. Now, on a positive note, Luongo did set the franchise record in shutouts in the season, breaking the previous record of 4 set by John Van Beesbrook. And while he would put up a decent 2.44 goals against average and a .920 save percentage, which is good enough for 6th in the entire league and second best all-time amongst rookie goaltenders, in 43 games, Luongo would post a 12, 24, and 7 record in what was essentially his second rookie campaign. This one was full, as the requirement for rookie goalies is 26 games. He definitely played more than 26. For the 2001-2002 campaign, Luongo would go and play in 58 games. And I'm sure if it wasn't for injury in March, he would probably play a lot more. But in those 58 games, Luongo would post a 16, 33, and 4 record with a 2.77 goals against and a .920 save percentage. That win-loss record, though, in the beginning of his career really did hurt. But he'd recover. Now healthy, Luongo came back in 2002-2003 to a much heavier workload, playing in 65 games, and while he was having a great year, including setting a franchise record shutout streak, which lasted 144 minutes and 51 seconds, he still managed to only put up a 20, 34, and 7 record with a 2.71 goals against and a .918 save percentage with 6 shutouts. The shutouts are nice, but the losses just don't seem to change much. Now, 2003-2004 was a much busier year for Luongo, seeing him play in 72 games, which is quite a bit more than when he first came to Florida, but is also 10 less than a full schedule. So could you imagine playing 10 games less than a full schedule as a goalie? That had to hurt at some point. But it's worth noting, they played in his first All-Star game in 2004, set NHL records for the most saves in a season with 2,303, as well as most shots faced in a season with 2,475. Both marks used to belong to former Islanders teammate Felix Potvin, while Potvin was a member of the Maple Leafs. Now, Luongo statistically improved, putting up a 25, 33, and 14 record with a team record best .931 save percentage and a 2.43 goals against with a new team record of 7 shutouts. He keeps breaking his own shutout record. Luongo was nominated to his second All-Star team, which is the yearly All-Star team they hand out at the end of the season. He was also nominated for the Vezina Trophy, which was won by Martin Brodeur, and was also nominated for the Lester B. Pearson Award, which we now know as the Ted Lindsay Award, which was won by Martin St. Louis. And while things were good for Luongo in Florida, things were not good for the league, as after the 03-04 season, the big one happened. Now, outside of the 2004 World Cup of Hockey and the 2005 AAHF World Championships, Luongo remained largely inactive during the big one. But when NHL came back in 2005, so did Luongo, and if playing 73 games in 03-04 was a bit much, why not play 75 in 05-06? Because that's exactly what happened. In those 75 games, though, he put up a team record 35 wins, which has since been surpassed. 30 losses and 9 extra time losses, because ties are no longer part of the equation as of this season. He also beat the team record in wins with an overtime victory against the Ottawa Senators for 107 career wins with the Panthers. On top of that, he broke his own record for shots on goal recorded in a season by 13 when he faced 2,488 of them. And even though statistically this had to be his best year to date with the Panthers, the hope was to re-sign until management felt they couldn't re-sign him, as he was going to be a free agent at the end of this year. So instead of risk losing Luongo for absolutely nothing, on June 23rd, 2006, the Panthers traded Luongo along with Lukas Krajicek and the 6th overall pick in the 2006 entry draft, which was the next day, and that turned out to be Sergei Shirokov, to the Vancouver Canucks for Todd Bertuzzi, Brian Allen, and Alex Ault. So with Luongo essentially playing the best hockey of his career in Vancouver for 8 seasons, which included his first taste of the playoffs and a trip to the Stanley Cup Final in 2011, as well as a William M. Jennings trophy that same year, and also being named team captain, there wouldn't be any reason to think Luongo would be back in Florida. Yet, the day before the trade deadline, on March 14th, 2014, that was essentially the exact same thing that happened, as Luongo was traded back to Florida from Vancouver, along with Steve Anthony, for Jacob Markstrom and Sean Matthias. And interestingly enough, Florida was already pretty solid in net, until the trade deadline the next day, that is, as they had Tim Thomas in their net during the 13-14 season. And if you remember the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals, it was Luongo versus Thomas, and they never really were on good terms since. But that's beside the point. Either way, the next day after they acquired Luongo, they traded Tim Thomas to Dallas, which essentially cleared the net for him. The hope, though, was that bringing Luongo back was to turn the Panthers around into a strong playoff contender. And really not much had really changed from Luongo's first time around with the team as far as playoff success, or lack thereof, was concerned. Even though the Panthers would still end up missing the playoffs for the 2013-14 season, Luongo would finish his year with Florida, playing 14 games and putting up a 6-7-1 record with a 3.09 goals against and a .896 save percentage with 1 shutout. For 2014-15, his first full year back in Florida, would see Luongo play in his 4th All-Star game and pick up his 400th career win at the end of the season. And even though in 61 games, Luongo put up a 28-19-12 record, nice to see him have more wins than losses, with a 2.35 goals against and a .921 save percentage with 2 shutouts. Stats were good, but the team wasn't, as the Panthers still failed to make the playoffs. But finally, in 2015-16, the Panthers' luck had seemed to finally change. Not only did they finally make the playoffs for the first time in Luongo's time with the team, they also won the Atlantic Division by 6 points. And Luongo put up a 35-19-6 record in 62 games with a 2.35 goals against and a .922 save percentage with 4 shutouts. And although the Panthers did win their division, and they did make the playoffs, they'd be eliminated in 6, with Luongo putting up a 2-4 record with a 2.06 goals against and a .934 save percentage. But unfortunately, this would be the only time the Panthers made the playoffs with Luongo on the team. Now coming into his 17th season for the 2016-17 season, Luongo was only limited to 40 games due to injury, as he missed the last half of the season thanks to it. He did manage to put up a 17-15-6 record with a 2.68 goals against and a .915 save percentage with 1 shutout. 17-18 saw him play in 5 less games, again for injury reasons, but Luongo also played in his 1,000th NHL game, making him the 3rd goalie in NHL history to do so, behind Martin Brodeur and Patrick Roy. He also managed to become the franchise all-time leader for all-time games played, wins, and shutouts. And in those 35 games, Luongo would put up an 18-11-2 record with 3 shutouts and a 2.47 goals against, with a .929 save percentage. For the 18-19 season, which was his 20th NHL season, Luongo played in 43 games, but also set some accomplishments along the way. Playing his 1,030th game, which put him 2nd in NHL history amongst goaltenders behind Brodeur, Luongo also finished the season 3rd in all-time wins for goalies in the NHL history, behind Brodeur and Roy. And in those 43 games, Luongo almost matched his record from 17-18, putting up an 18-16-5 record with 1 shutout, a 3.12 goals against, and a .899 save percentage. And with age and injuries finally starting to catch up, who is 40 by this point, on June 26, 2019, 5 years to the day after his return to Florida, Luongo would announce his retirement by posting that he was taking his talents to the South Beach retirement home, despite having 3 years left on his contract. And that was essentially the breakdown of Luongo's time in Florida. Now let's go over some stats. So in his 11 years with the Florida Panthers out of a 20-year career, played 572 games with 230 wins, 241 losses, 75 ties and or extra time losses. As you have to remember, he played in a time where ties were a thing and ties weren't a thing. In the playoffs, he only played 6 games, putting up 2 wins, 4 losses, .934 save percentage of 2.05 goals against. His regular season goals against and save percentage was a .919 save percentage, a 2.61 goals against, with 38 shutouts. He also managed to pick up 13 assists along the way. So that's also a helpful thing. He was nominated to the 2nd NHL All-Star team in 2004 and played 3 All-Star games as a Florida Panther. Now, NHL records he set as a Panther are most saves in a season from 2003-04 with 2,303, and most shots faced in a season with 2,488 in 2005-2006. Now, as for Panthers records, he owns the most wins in a career with 230, most games played with 572, most shutouts with 38, most saves in a career with 16,086. Most games played in a season was 75, which he did in 05-06. Most shutouts in a season, which is a tied record that he set in 03-04, and the best save percentage in a season with .931 in 03-04. Now he's to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2022, and on March 7th, 2020, Luongo got his number 1 put to the rafters by the Florida Panthers. And that is the story of the number 1 hanging up in Florida. So my own opinion of the guy. Great goalie for his size. just suffered from not having the best defense in front of him. Because you can imagine, if he had the same kind of defense that he had in Vancouver in front of him in Florida, they would have been champs. At least, if not champs, definitely playoff contenders. And it's a shame that he only had one playoff year in Florida, because he could have offered so much if he had a good team in front of him most years. But the fact that he was able to escape with franchise records and wins and shutouts, that alone tells you that he was good enough. But either way, great goalie for his size. I loved his butterfly style. Probably one of the most underrated goalies of his time, and just fun to watch. But that was the career of Roberto Luongo. So another one of Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you're at this point. It's a great thing for all involved, especially me. But let me know you're here. Hit me that thumbs up. That shiny red button. If you're entertaining the idea, if you haven't done so already, you know what it does. You know how it makes you feel, and you know what we're going for. We're narrowing in very close. And to all the people who have come along since, I want to thank you very much. Your help does appreciate. I do appreciate your help is what I'm trying to say. Let's hope we can get to 250 soon. All my socials are in the description down below. So moving forward, as far as retired numbers is concerned, I've got 2 that are very close to done, and 1 that I should finish. Plus, as well as I'm working on a couple bigger ones. But either way, in the meantime, in between time, be looking for more videos from Trev. Later.